Forks froze midair when I said it. Choose, me or him. The Carters' dining room fell quiet. I could hear the ice settle in Tom's glass. I set my wedding ring on the table, one small gold circle, 10 years heavy, and waited. Emily didn't reach for me. She didn't even look up. Her phone was still lit in her hand like a light for the wrong man. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't breaking plates. I was done performing. Every laugh she'd given that screen, every late-night buzz I pretended not to hear, had walked into this room with us. Right now, I said, steady, make your choice where everyone can see. Her mother blinked. Her brother stared like he'd never met his sister. In the vents, the AC hummed. 30 seconds. 40. Emily swallowed, shoulders shaking, and said, nothing. That's when I realized silence can cheat louder than words. If you want to know what I did next, keep watching now. My name's Jack Miller. 10 years married, mortgage in the suburbs, a grill on the deck that still smells like last summer's ribs. Sunday nights we rotate houses. This week, it was the Carters. Pot roast on the table, football murmuring from the living room, kids running down the hall. It looked like every commercial you've ever seen about family. Warm lights, clinking plates, easy chatter about nothing. The kind of night where you loosen your belt after dessert and brag about lawns. I used to count on that normal. I used to believe in it like a church. But lately, I'd been wearing a different suit to dinner, one stitched with doubt. I smiled when I was supposed to, laughed at Ryan's casserole joke, and kept my hands steady around a sweating glass of tea. Under the table, my jaw worked like a wrench. 10 years, and I couldn't name the man she was texting. I could only feel him at our table, and he was getting louder. If you've been married long enough, you know your person's laugh. There's the neighbor's dog did something dumb laugh, the my mom's being my mom laugh. And then there's the one I heard that night, bright, private, a laugh that leaned toward a place I couldn't follow. Emily glanced down, mouth tilted, eyes lit by a glow she tried to shade with her palm. She flipped the phone face down, late as always, like sliding a secret back under the door. I wiped my hands on a napkin I didn't need. I told myself to be reasonable. People text, people laugh. But the laugh stayed in my chest like a pebble in a shoe, small, constant, impossible to ignore once you notice it. Around me, forks scraped plates. Susan asked for salt. Ryan talked about tires. I nodded along, that pebble grinding. I told myself to let it go, just for one more night. But the laugh didn't let me go, and I wasn't the only one who heard it. Nights had changed. Our bedroom used to be quiet. 2 phones on chargers, 2 people asleep by 10. Lately, the dark had a hum, a buzz at 11:13. Another at 12:02. A quick inhale from her, the soft click of a screen lighting her face, the subtle shoulder turn away from me like the phone needed privacy. I stared at the ceiling fan's lazy blades, counting them like you count sheep when sleep won't come. I tried to be the bigger man. Don't snoop, don't accuse, don't become the guy you promised you'd never be. Still, patterns write themselves. Laughs at dinner, buzzes after midnight. The morning phone flipped face down next to her coffee, like a coin waiting to be called. "Who's texting you?" I asked once, casual as I could. "Nobody," she said, too fast. The fan turned, the day moved, and that word stuck to me. Nobody. I went to work with nobody in my pocket. By then, it felt like he had a name. Proof doesn't always kick down the door. Sometimes it slips in like junk mail. I found the receipt in the cup holder of her car while I was moving her gym bag. White paper curled from heat, the ink a little faint. A steakhouse across town. Tuesday night. 2 entrees, 2 bourbons, tip that said someone lingered. We don't go out on Tuesdays, we don't drink bourbon. I ran a thumb down the itemized list, like the truth was a line I could rub away. My first thought wasn't rage, it was logistics. Babysitter? Traffic at that hour? Who picked the spot? I folded the paper and put it back exactly where I found it. I drove home with the window cracked, half hoping there was an explanation I'd missed, half dreading there wasn't. At dinner that week, she told a story about a work deadline, and I measured the length of Tuesday inside her voice. That's when the bourbon started smelling like cologne. I don't wear cologne to the hardware store. Whoever rode in her passenger seat did. It was the kind of scent designed to enter a room first. Clean, sharp, like ambition in a bottle. I caught it when I buckled the seatbelt to move her car in the driveway. It wasn't a ghost, it was fresh. I sat there a second with the engine idling, hand on the shifter, and the scent pressed a thumbprint on the back of my neck. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe a coworker hitched a ride. Maybe someone sprayed something at the office. The longer I stayed, the less funny it got. Smells tell stories. Coffee says morning. Cut grass says Saturday. This smell said a stranger knew the inside of our life. I turned off the engine and just listened to the tick of the cooling hood. Then I remembered a detail I wasn't supposed to know existed. The hidden album on her phone. I didn't break a passcode. I didn't hack anything. I picked up her phone to silence an alarm, and fate placed a thumbnail where my thumb would see it. The hidden album isn't really hidden if you know Apple. One swipe, one tap, and there it was. A photo framed just shy of faces. His hand on a table I'd never eaten at. Her bracelet, the one I bought for our 8th, glinting by a rocks glass. The angle was casual on purpose, like they'd practiced being careless. I felt that photo not in my eyes but in my ribs. 10 years is a lot of birthdays and fights and inside jokes. It's also a lot of trust baked into muscle memory. I set the phone down exactly as I found it. I washed my hands, though I hadn't touched anything dirty. And that night, I decided if there was going to be a scene, it would be mine, calm, clear, and public. I coached myself like a man staring at a ledge he built. Don't jump to conclusions, I said in the mirror. Ask questions. Be decent. I listed reasons good husbands give. Stress at work, bad boundaries, a silly flirt that got out of hand. I tried on forgiveness like a jacket, tight in the shoulders, sleeves too long. I rehearsed a speech that started soft. M, I love you, but I need the truth. The speech sounded right in the bathroom fan's white noise. Then the house went quiet and my brain got loud. Ledges don't care about speeches. They measure gravity. I pictured Tuesday bourbon, smelled passenger cologne, heard the late-night buzz. I put the jacket back on its hanger. Being decent doesn't mean being blind. If there was a story, I'd give her the chance to tell it. If there wasn't, I'd stop pretending there was. Either way, I'd choose my back. And I picked the stage, her family's table. Storms rarely arrive without a sky warning you. All week, the air changed. Little things thumped louder, the mail slot, the washer's spin cycle, the loose board on the porch. I could feel Sunday coming the way you feel rain in your knees. I sharpened in small ways, cleaned the truck, mowed the lawn in tight lines, paid the gas bill early. Men my age will understand. When you can't control the big thing, you tidy the edges. I set my shirt out, pressed a collar, shaved slow. I even checked the spare on the truck, the kind of chore that says, I'm ready to go if I have to. Saturday night on the couch, we watched a show and laughed in the same places like actors hitting marks. She slid her phone under a pillow when she went to brush her teeth. By morning, I knew exactly what I'd bring to the table. Not anger, proof, patience, and the last of my hope. I've seen guys torch their lives with a plate throw. I wasn't going to be that man. My plan fit in a sentence and a gesture. The sentence, choose, right now, me or him. The gesture, my ring, placed where everyone could see it. Public, yes, but not cruel. If she wanted him, she could look me in the eye and say it. If she wanted us, she could say that too. No more fog, no more nobody, no more late-night hum I had to pretend not to hear. I pictured the room, the Carter's chandelier, Tom's steady stare, Susan's worried hands, Ryan playing with a toothpick. I pictured Emily's face when truth stopped being theoretical. I wasn't there to win. I was there to end the guessing. I buttoned my shirt, pocketed my keys, and rehearsed the way I'd set the ring so it made a sound. And when the moment came, the sound it made was louder than I imagined. The Carter's house smelled like pot roast and buttered rolls, the kind of scent that usually lowers your shoulders. Football noise drifted from the living room, and Susan kept asking who wanted iced tea. Ryan cracked a joke about gas prices. Everyone laughed the way families do when they'd rather laugh than talk about real things. I took my seat where I always sit, left of Tom at the head of the table. Emily was across from me, dress I'd seen 100 Sundays, hair tucked behind her ear the way she does when she's trying to look unbothered. If you've lived long enough, you know how to play along. Pass the potatoes, compliment the gravy, ask about work. Men my age understand. Routine can feel like shelter, and like a trap. I let the comfort wrap around me for one last minute, breathing in the steam off my plate, counting my heartbeat into something steady. Because normal was about to end on my cue. I've worn that role before, the husband who's fine. Fine at parties, fine at church, fine at parent-teacher night. You learn the beats. Hold your fork like you've got time. Nod when Tom mentions the roof needing a patch before winter. Smile when Susan says she'll send lasagna next week. If you grew up in a house where men didn't raise their voice at the table, you know the choreography. My dad used to say, there's a time and place for everything. Tonight, this table was both. I let my eyes settle on the candle wax pooling near Emily's water glass. My jaw unclenched, my chest slowed down. The trick isn't pretending you're okay. It's deciding when you're allowed not to be. I lifted my napkin, dabbed my mouth, and heard myself make a small, polite sound that didn't belong to me. That was the last moment I planned to be fine. It started with the buzz, that mosquito whine from her purse. She didn't pull the phone all the way out, just enough to see the name, just enough to let a smile escape before she caged it. Then came the laugh. Not big, not dramatic, but the kind of private laugh you give to someone who's earned your attention. It shaved a thin strip off my patience. I'd heard that laugh in our kitchen at midnight, in our bed when she thought I was asleep, in the driveway when she checked the weather. Tonight, it lived between us like a dare. The men who've been there will understand. It isn't the volume, it's the direction. That laugh wasn't facing me. I set my fork down, felt the table's grain under my fingertips, and let the room catch up to what I already knew. The next words out of my mouth were going to change the shape of this family. I didn't clear my throat. I didn't stand. I just said it so the room could hear, steady as a level on a toolbox. Choose me or him. The sentence sat in the air like a third-place setting. I saw Susan's hand freeze above the rolls, butter knife pointing nowhere. Ryan blinked fast like he'd missed a step on the stairs. Tom's eyes didn't flinch. Men like him have watched storms cross a field. Emily laced her fingers together and stared at her knuckles as if they had the answer. I kept my voice even. Right now, we don't need a speech. We don't need drama. Just the truth where everyone can see it. If you're 30, 50, 65, it doesn't matter. You reach a point where you'd rather face pain than be lied to politely. The clock over the mantel ticked its little sermon, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel crazy. I felt ready. You don't notice background noise until it stops. The TV in the other room might as well have unplugged itself. Forks hovered like birds, unsure where to land. A chair creaked. The chandelier hummed. My skin registered things I never notice. The cool draft from the vent, the warmth from a plate. Emily didn't touch her phone. She didn't touch me. She didn't touch anything. We were a room full of people pretending not to be witnesses. That's something older men understand. Families are juries with casseroles. I took a breath through my nose and let it out slow. A mechanic's patient exhale when a bolt won't break free. It's simple, I said, quieter. Us or him. I wasn't begging. I wasn't bargaining. I was handing her the only honest door left. And she chose the one thing that cuts deeper than a no. She could have looked up. She could have said my name, even if her voice shook. She didn't. She studied the tablecloth pattern like it was a test. I saw the tiny muscles in her throat work around a swallow that didn't finish. Somewhere, somebody's phone chimed, probably a calendar alert to water a plant. I thought about the promises we'd made in a church 10 years ago, the easy words you say when you think life will never ask for proof. A lot of men my age carry those promises like pocket knives, useful until you're somewhere they're not allowed. I let the hurt pass through me like weather. I didn't make a sound. If you've ever held a door for someone and watched them walk a different direction, you know this feeling. It's not thunder. It's a small snap, like a dry twig. And it was enough to break the branch we'd both been standing on. I counted in my head because numbers give you something to hold. 1, for the first mortgage payment we made on time. 2, for the 2 bourbons on that Tuesday receipt. 3, for the 3 times I asked, "Who's texting?" and got nobody. 4, for the walls of the room watching us pretend. 5, for the years we said we might start a family and kept postponing. 6, for her bracelet by that rocks glass. 7, for the nights I stared at the ceiling fan. 8, for the arguments we smoothed over with date nights that felt like bandages. 9, for the cologne in the passenger seat. 10, for the chance I was giving her right now. When I got there, I gave her one more beat. I wanted to be a man I'd respect later. And when the beat ended, I finally did the simplest, hardest thing I could do. I took off my wedding ring. It had skin memory, left a pale circle like a tan line from a life. I didn't toss it. I placed it between us so it made a clean sound, not a crash. In a world full of noise, a single click can be a hammer. I saw Susan flinch. Ryan's jaw set. Tom didn't blink. Men like him have heard final sounds before. A last nail in a board, a latch sliding shut. I kept my hand flat on the table a second longer than necessary, like I was pressing a letter onto warm wax. No one spoke. That silence weighed more than anything I could have said. People think rage feels hot. Truth is, real endings feel cold, like shade after noon sun. I slid my chair back, felt the floor under my boots, and knew I was done asking for answers she wouldn't give. When you do a hard thing, you learn who people are. Susan's eyes glossed. Ryan looked at his sister the way a brother does when he can't fix it with a joke. Emily's shoulders shrank into themselves, as if she could hide inside her dress. Tom watched me like a man measuring a cut before he saws. There wasn't judgment in his stare. There was accuracy. He gave me the kind of nod men give in garages and hospital hallways. Small, respectful, not permission, not praise. It said, "I see what this costs." That mattered more than I expected. A lot of us son-in-laws live in that quiet space. Not quite sons, more than strangers. Tonight, Tom stood in that space with me without moving an inch. And with that, I pushed my chair in, left the ring where it lay, and made for the door. I didn't slam the door. I didn't make a speech on the porch. I walked past the hydrangeas Susan babies every spring, down the same steps I've carried coolers and Christmas bins and one wobbly turkey fryer. The evening air had that Sunday smell, cut grass and someone grilling 2 streets over. My truck waited at the curb like it always does, reliable and plain. My hand found the handle, familiar and steady. I felt the weight lift as I slid behind the wheel, a weight I'd mistaken for love when it was really doubt. Men my age will get this. Sometimes the bravest sound you can make is a quiet engine turning over. I checked my mirrors out of habit, not to see the house. I set my hands at 10 and 2, like my dad taught me, and pulled away. Because once you choose yourself, you don't need a rear view to tell you you're headed the right direction. I sat in the truck and waited for anger to show up. It didn't. What came was empty, like a house after the movers leave. Same walls, nothing in them. I put my hands on the wheel and felt how steady they were. 10 years ago, the first time we fought for real, I shook so hard I had to sit on my hands. Not tonight. The street light outside the Carters cast a circle on the hood like a stage I'd just walked off. I heard a distant dog, somebody rolling a trash can, the AC unit kicking on next door. Ordinary sounds, the kind that say, life goes on whether you keep up or not. I didn't check my phone. I didn't look back at the house. I just breathed and let the quiet stretch, testing its edges the way you test a porch step before you trust it. Then I turned the key, and the engine answered me, not her. I eased away from the curb and caught the dining room in the side mirror. Warm gold, full of people, a picture frame holding someone else's life. You learn things in mirrors. You learn if you look tired or if you're the kind of man who leaves when he means it. The light stayed small, but it followed. A little square of before hovering behind me. I remembered birthdays at that table. One Thanksgiving where Tom carved the turkey with surgeon care. The time Susan whispered to me that Emily used to bring home strays, cats, friends, lost projects, and love them until they ran. That square of light got smaller with each street I turned. I didn't speed. I didn't crawl. I drove like a man who knows the way home and knows he isn't going there. When the light finally slipped out of the mirror, it felt like a page tearing clean. Every town has a 24-hour place that smells like hash browns and bleach. Mine sits by the interstate, neon humming, pie under glass. I slid into a booth with a split vinyl seam and ordered coffee I didn't want. The waitress called me hun, like waitresses do when they can tell a man needs to hear it. I wrapped both hands around the mug and let the heat stand in for comfort until it cooled. The TV in the corner was running a late ballgame highlight. A trucker at the counter told a joke that only he laughed at. I've been in a lot of diners at 2 a.m., after promotions, after funerals, after deer season. This one felt different. I wasn't killing time. I was letting time work on me. Sip, breathe, stare at the door like an answer might walk in. When the coffee finally went cold, I realized I'd stopped waiting for her and started waiting for myself. I paid cash, tipped too much, and took the road that runs along the rail yard. The night peeled back mile by mile. Driving's a kind of prayer when you don't have words. You count green lights like blessings and red lights like warnings you obey anyway. Past the feed store, past the high school field where they lay fresh lines every August, past the gas station that always smells like burnt popcorn. At some point the radio turned into noise and I shut it off. I listened to the truck, every rattle I already knew, every hum I trusted. Men my age will get this. A good engine will tell you the truth if you shut up long enough to hear it. Somewhere around County Line, my jaw unclenched for the first time in months, and in the stillness between exits, I felt the first edge of peace catch like a gear finding its tooth. The sky began to pale, that thin gray that means you outdrove the night. Morning fog hung low over the fields like the day was thinking about it. I pulled into a rest area and sat on the tailgate, coffee steam replaced by my own breath in the cool air. Sunrises used to be for early fishing trips with my dad, for ladder jobs before the heat. Today it was a stitch, pulling me back together in small, neat lines. A man in a reflective vest hosed down the concrete. The water ran in clean rivers toward the drain. I watched it the way you watch a fire, no reason, just human. The calm didn't arrive like a choir. It leaked in, steady, practical, the way daybreak always keeps its promise. When the sun finally broke the tree line, I knew the hard part wasn't leaving. It was not turning around. At 7:30, my phone lit up with her name. I watched it ring once, twice, the photo we took at a county fair years ago glowing like a stranger. I let it go to voicemail. Seconds later, a text. Can we talk? No period, no name, just 3 words heavy as bricks. I thumbed the screen and set it face down. Men like me are trained to fix. Loose hinges, leaky sinks, rough patches. But a lot of us learn late that you can't wrench a person into place. The phone buzzed again, then stopped. The silence after a call you don't take is a silence you own. I poured it into my hands and held it. The old me would have called back, driven back, tried to prove I was the reasonable one. The man in that truck didn't chase. He measured what it cost to answer and kept his change. She called again. I answered this time and let quiet do more work than speeches ever did. Can we talk? She asked, voice small, like she'd set it down somewhere and couldn't find it. You could have last night, I said, not loud, not mean, just balanced. She started to explain and I let the words run like water over a rock. There's a point where explanations aren't bridges. They're detours that keep you circling the same block. I'm not ready, I told her, and meant it. Ready to listen? Maybe later. Ready to pretend? No. Ready to return to a table where I left a ring to prove I meant what I said? Not a chance. She breathed, tried a softer voice, then said my name the way she used to. I hung up gently, not in anger, like closing a door you finally fixed so it latches right. The next call came with tears. I could hear them before she spoke, the little sips of breath people take when they're trying not to drown. Once that sound would have sent me running. Tonight it felt like static, loud, shapeless, everywhere and nowhere. Please, she said, just come home. We can figure it out. I pictured home, the crooked frame in the hallway, the dent in the couch cushion, the stack of mail by the fruit bowl. All the ordinary things that had covered a crack I couldn't pretend wasn't there anymore. Are you sorry you got caught? I asked. Or sorry for what you did? She didn't answer. I waited for words that never came, and in that long blank, I realized I wasn't heartless. I was finally being kind to the only person I'd neglected, me. By noon, I pointed the truck toward the lake we used to claim when we were still building futures out of talk. The same gravel lot, the same warped plank dock, the same tree where we carved our initials inside a crooked heart with a pocket knife that was too dull for art. I ran my fingers over the bark and felt time in ridges. Back then, we made lists, states we'd drive through, names we liked for kids we never had, the porch swing we'd put up next spring. I sat on the hood and watched a fisherman cast the same line 3 times. He adjusted, a little left, a little farther, patient as weather. I envied the simplicity. Throw, wait, repeat, believe. I thought about all the throws I'd made this past year at a woman who stopped reaching back. And I knew the lake hadn't changed. We had. One of us stopped showing up when it mattered. I replayed the plans, road trips that died on calendars, sweet words we said instead of hard ones, a marriage we both liked the sound of even when we didn't like the work. Maybe you've lived this, loving the idea of something more than the thing itself. I pictured the life I'd been carrying like a toolbox, heavier every month, full of fixes she never asked for. The truth landed without fireworks. Our dream had become one man pushing and one woman drifting. I wanted to be angry. Anger's easy. It burns hot and makes you feel strong. But standing there, palm against a tree that had outlasted our best promises, I felt something better than fury. I felt permission to stop dragging a future that didn't want to be built and to start building a man who did. Tom called late afternoon, the kind of hour when men either nap in a chair or fix something small to avoid thinking. He didn't clear his throat or warm the engine with small talk. "Jack," he said, "don't pretend nothing happened." He's a plain talk man, the sort who can read a level bubble from across the room. If you go soft on this, you'll hate yourself by Christmas. I leaned against the workbench, eyes on a jar of screws I've refilled for 10 years. He wasn't defending his daughter. He was defending the version of me who tells the truth. Older men know that kind of mercy, hard on the surface, kind at the core. "Whatever you decide," he said, "make sure you can live with it 10 years from now." The line clicked quiet. I set the phone down and saw my hands, steady, useful, ready. I wasn't going back to argue, I was going back to make it plain. I drove to the hardware store, the one with a bell that rings every time you open the door and a pegboard wall that smells like oil and dust. I bought a small tin box, a simple brass padlock, and a pocket notebook with a red spine. The man at the counter asked if I needed a key copied. "No," I said, "just one is fine." Back in the truck, I set the box on the passenger seat like cargo I didn't trust to slide. Men my age collect the right containers for the job. Coffee cans for nails, plastic bins for Christmas lights, a box for what you're done carrying. I clicked the lock once, just to hear its purpose. The note would be short. Not poetry, not rage, just the truth in one sentence, the kind you can read in a breath and remember for the rest of your life. I turned the key, headed for the house, and didn't touch the radio once. I laid the box on the kitchen counter like a mechanic lays out parts. Clean, in order, without commentary. First the ring, 10 years of habit set down without a shake. Then the photo from her hidden album, printed at the pharmacy because I needed to stop pretending a screen could lie to me. Finally, the receipt with its Tuesday timestamp and those 2 bourbons that still burned in my throat when I thought about them. I wrote the note in block letters so even a stranger could read it. "This is what you threw away." I didn't add a date. I didn't sign my name. A man doesn't autograph a wound. I closed the lid, fed the shackle through, and snapped the lock. The sound was soft, final, like a door on a car that fits right because somebody measured twice. I picked up the box and felt lighter and heavier at the same time. She was on the porch when I pulled in, hair up, eyes swollen, a sweatshirt that made her look younger than the choices she'd made. I didn't go inside. Some conversations don't belong to walls. I held the box out. She didn't take it at first, just stared like it might be ticking. "What is it?" she asked, and I could hear the girl in her, the one who used to collect strays and believe she could fix what was broken by loving it enough. "Everything I'm done carrying," I said. She took it with both hands, careful, as if weight could explode. When she saw the note, her mouth opened and closed without sound. Then she lifted the lid and met the 3 pieces of truth I'd laid there. Her knees softened like a ladder rung giving way, and she sat before she fell. Crying isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a series of small collapses, a breath that won't finish, hands that can't decide what to hold. She pressed her fingers to her lips and stared at the photo like it could still be edited. "Where did you get this?" she whispered, as if location could change meaning. "Doesn't matter," I said, and felt the strange calm of finally speaking in straight lines. Her shoulders started a tremor that spread slow, like a spill that won't be contained by napkins. I watched, not to punish, but because truth deserves witnesses. A lot of us learn to fix, to fetch water, to mop up. I didn't move. I let the moment do its work. She looked up with eyes that asked for a different script, and I gave her the only line left, the one that doesn't bend. There it was, the bargain basement defense. "It was just texting," she said, as if the word just could shrink a room. "I've used just myself, just tired, just busy, just stressed. Grown men know that just is a drop cloth we throw over furniture when company comes." "We never even met," she added, voice searching for a foothold. I thought about the bourbon, the cologne, the late-night light on her face, the laugh that didn't point toward me. Some roads you don't have to drive to know where they end. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't reach for the box. I let her keep holding it, because weight teaches what words can't. And when she reached for the old map, excuses, detours, exit ramps, I folded it up and put it away. I didn't craft a speech. I just asked the question that stands up in any room. If it meant nothing, why hide it? The wind moved the porch flag just enough to make a sound. She watched the box like it might answer for her. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said, and the old me might have thanked her for the mercy of a blindfold before a punch. Not this time. "You didn't want to be accountable," I said. It landed, quiet, accurate. Men my age understand that difference the way we understand torque. The right pressure at the right angle changes everything. She looked away toward the street where kids ride bikes after supper. I let the silence sit, a teacher who doesn't rush the student to the right line, and when her eyes came back, I could see she'd run out of places to put the truth. The confession arrived without makeup. "I was lonely," she said, and the words hit like a familiar doorframe you've bumped 1,000 times. Annoying, inevitable. I know loneliness. On job sites, in crowded rooms, in marriages where 2 calendars pass each other like trains. "You were always working," she added, and that landed too. Men build, we provide, we stack hours until they look like love from a distance. But loneliness doesn't care about stacks. I nodded once. Acknowledgement, not agreement. "Lonely people tell the truth to the person they're with," I said. "They don't audition replacements." Her face crumpled. She wanted me to argue so we could wrestle this into a draw. I didn't. Draws keep you stuck. Decisions make a path. And the path I saw didn't have us on it together anymore. She tried a dozen small keys. Regret, nostalgia, the picture of us at the county fair, the promise to do counseling, to change jobs, to start over. I've used those keys myself at other doors. Sometimes they turn. Not this lock. "You made a choice when you said nothing at the table," I said. "Silence is a choice." I felt it in my own bones as I said it. How many times had I stayed quiet to keep the peace while the house tilted? "I won't beg for the thing I gave you for free," I added, and watched the sentence land. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like standing your ground in boots you paid for by the hour. She asked if there was any chance left, and I told her the truth. Not the kind you'd want. I threw a duffel together. Work jeans, a few shirts, the razor I trust not to nick. I drove to Mike's place, a friend from before marriage, before titles, the kind of man who keeps a couch clear and a beer cold. He didn't ask for the whole story. He looked at my face, handed me the bottle, and said, "You can stay as long as you need." Men know that language. It's clean. I showered, let hot water thump my shoulders, and caught my reflection in the fogged mirror. Older than I felt, steadier than I expected. I wasn't broken. I was bruised and breathing. The difference matters. I lay on the couch and listened to the house settle, a sound I'd missed. wood finding its place after a long day, and for the first time in months, the man in the mirror looked like someone I could respect in the morning. I woke up on Mike's couch with the kind of clarity you don't argue with. It wasn't adrenaline. It was a clean checklist the mind makes when the heart finally stops bargaining. Coffee, shower, shave slow. Then I opened my laptop and searched divorce attorney near me, like every ordinary man who never thought he'd type those words. The receptionist had a calm voice that sounded like she'd guided 1,000 men through the same door. "We can see you at 2, she said. I texted Mike. "Need the truck? Got an appointment." He wrote back one word. "Proud." It landed like a hand on the shoulder. At the office, I told the truth in straight lines. What I knew, what I suspected, what I was done pretending. The lawyer didn't sell me revenge. He sold me paperwork and peace. "We'll draft," he said. "You review, you sign." Walking back to the truck, I felt the first real edge of freedom bite clean. When the draft arrived, my hands didn't shake. 10 years of us reduced to pages. Property lines, signatures, dates, places to initial. It should have felt cold. It didn't. It felt accurate, like a carpenter's pencil marking where the cut has to go. I read every line out loud because hearing it made it real. There's a sound to finality. No echo, no wobble, just the click of things finding their groove. I thought of my dad signing the mortgage, the title to his first used truck, the permission slip for a field trip he couldn't chaperone because he was working. Ink matters. Names matter. I signed mine where it asked and didn't pause to remember our wedding vows. Those belonged to a couple who couldn't live inside them. I slipped the papers back into the envelope, sealed it with my thumb, and set it on the table like a brick. Pain didn't leave. It organized itself into something I could lift. I called Tom and asked if I could come by when everyone was there. Susan, Ryan, even the aunt who never misses a Sunday. He didn't ask why. He just said, "We'll be home at 6. Men like him understand the gravity of a specific time. I drove over as the neighborhood lit its porch lamps. Part of me wanted to do it alone, to avoid the spectacle. But secrets had thrived in the shadows. The truth would stand in the light. I parked where I always did, behind Ryan's pickup, and took a breath that felt like something untying in my chest. Through the window, I saw the shape of people who used to be mine. The room didn't know yet. Rooms don't. They just hold whatever you bring into them. I grabbed the envelope from the passenger seat and told myself, "You didn't come to perform. You came to be clear." We didn't start with small talk. Tom nodded at a chair. I stayed standing. "I'm not here to argue," I said. "I'm here to be plain." I placed the envelope in the center of the table and slid it toward Emily the way you slide a bill you've already paid. No flourish, no threat, just gravity. Her hands hovered, then pulled the flap like it might bite. When she saw the first line, color left her face. Susan covered her mouth. Ryan stared at a knot in the wood. "Divorce?" Emily whispered, as if naming it changed the substance. "This is my choice," I said, "since you couldn't make yours." I wasn't cruel. I was finished. For years, I'd been the man who softened edges. Tonight, I was the man who set them. Families make their own weather. This one dropped into a pressure you could feel in your ears. Nobody reached for water. The TV in the other room played to an audience that had stopped listening. My body logged every detail. The damp ring from Susan's glass, the faint citrus of furniture polish, the second hand on the mantel clock pulling the room forward whether we followed or not. Emily kept her eyes on the papers, as if the paragraphs might rearrange into a different ending. Tom's gaze didn't waver from me. He didn't look angry. He looked accurate. A lot of men know that look. You give it when a hard decision finds its right home. I didn't fill the silence. I let it carry its own weight, because the next sound needed to be the truth coming from someone other than me. Emily finally spoke, voice thin, breaking on the edges. "Don't do this here, please, not in front of them." For a second, the old reflex kicked in. Protect, deflect, move the moment somewhere easier. But easy hadn't helped us. Private hadn't healed us. Secrets had eaten our table from the underside like termites. I glanced at Susan's wet eyes, at Ryan's clenched jaw, at Tom's steady face. "This is where the lying lived," I said, quiet. "This is where the truth belongs." Emily shook her head, little jerks like she was trying to dislodge the day. "We can explain," she offered, and even she heard how flimsy it sounded. I rested my fingertips on the envelope and felt more solid than I had in months. "I owe them the why," I said, not as a performance but as a receipt. I laid out the story like a mechanic lays parts on a towel, clean, visible, in order. Late-night buzzes, face-down mornings, the Tuesday receipt with 2 bourbons, the cologne in her passenger seat, the photo she forgot to bury. I didn't dramatize, I didn't embellish. Men my age understand the power of plain words. You can argue with feelings, you can't argue with timestamps. Emily cried, Susan cried with her. Ryan's jaw worked like a stuck bolt. I ended where it started. "I asked you to choose in front of everyone. You chose silence." The room didn't move, and in the space after that sentence, I heard a chair shift, the sound of a verdict arriving without a gavel. Tom looked at his daughter with a softness that didn't hide the steel. "Is it true?" he asked. No sermon, no story. She nodded once, eyes on the table. He breathed out, long and even, like a man setting down a heavy box. Then he turned to me, to Jack's right to leave. 6 words, measured and final. Susan cried harder. Ryan's fist tapped the wood once, twice, a rhythm that meant he wished the day were different. Emily stumbled to her feet, tears making dark coins on the paperwork. "You're all just going to let him walk?" she said, voice pitching into a place I didn't recognize. Tom didn't raise his. "You made your bed," he answered. "You lie in it." That was the first time I felt the house agree with me. I didn't stay to collect sympathy. I wasn't there to be the hero of a sad story. I gathered what I'd brought, nothing more, and looked around the room that had held a decade of birthday candles and cheap wine toasts. "I hope you're okay," I told Susan, and meant it. I shook Ryan's hand. He held on a beat longer than usual, a brother without the right job to do. Tom walked me to the doorway but didn't follow me outside. That restraint was its own respect. Men know when words would do damage. I stepped onto the porch and the evening air met me like a clean shirt. No confetti, no parade, just the lightness that comes when a man finally puts down what isn't his to carry. I reached into my pocket, found the last thing that tied me to that house, and knew what to do with it. I turned back just long enough to place my house key on the kitchen counter. No speech, no note, no tape under the mat. A small metal truth against a clean surface. The sound it made was ordinary and absolute, the way a door sounds when it latches right. I didn't look at Emily. I didn't need another picture to carry around. I walked out the same door I'd walked in 100 Sundays, and let it close with a click I'll remember longer than our vows. On the steps, I breathed in the cut grass evening and heard a neighbor's sprinkler ticking like a metronome for a life I was finally free to conduct. I didn't hurry to the truck. I didn't drag my feet. I moved at the speed of a man done borrowing time. And when the engine turned over, it sounded like my name said back to me the right way. I took a room at a motel that's seen more stories than carpets. Single story, doors that open to the parking lot, ice machine that rattles like an old truck. The neon vacancy blinked, half tired, like it had been up all week. I parked under a light and carried my duffel in one hand, my boots in the other to keep from waking whoever still believed in sleep. Inside, the bedspread had that floral pattern that never existed in nature, and the AC unit hummed with the confidence of something that only does one thing and does it well. I set my wallet and keys on the little round table and sat a while, listening to 18-wheelers whisper past like a river you can't see. No calls, no voices, just the room breathing with me. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't waiting. I was letting the day land, and when it did, the quiet fit like a shirt cut to my measurements. Relief doesn't arrive with trumpets. It shows up like a decent pair of shoes. Plain, supportive, not much to look at, exactly what you need. I stood under the motel shower and let hot water find knots I'd ignored for months. My shoulders rolled back on their own, like they remembered how to sit on my frame. I ate a gas station turkey sandwich that tasted better than it had a right to, then wrote 3 lines on a scrap of paper. Sleep, call lawyer, move forward. That was all the plan required tonight. Men my age measure progress by small wins. Oil changed, gutters cleared, appointment kept. Relief was the version of me that kept a promise to myself. I pulled the blackout curtain, killed the lamp, and listened to the AC chew through the heat, steady as a metronome for breathing. When I finally slept, I didn't dream about her. I dreamed about nothing, and woke up rested. Near dusk the next day, there was a knock that didn't belong to housekeeping. I opened the door and Emily stood there, smaller than the last time I saw her, holding the tin box like a child holds a lunch pail on the first day of school. Her eyes were swollen, her hair doing whatever hair does when you don't sleep. "Can I come in?" she asked, voice steady enough to make me curious. I stepped aside. She sat on the bed and set the box between us, as if truth needed a referee. We didn't start with pleasantries. We didn't have any left. "I opened it 100 times, she said, fingers on the lock. I kept thinking I could change what was inside if I stared long enough. The AC clicked off. The room went quiet enough to hear 2 people breathe. And then she said the line she was always going to say, whether now or never. "It was just texting," she said, and I almost smiled at how predictable the word "just" always tries to be. But then she added the part that mattered. "And I hurt you." Simple, clean, not dressed in excuses. She told me she liked being wanted, that the buzz at night felt like a hand on her back when mine wasn't there. She talked about the long weeks when we passed each other like trains, about how easy it is to share a joke with a stranger who doesn't need you to fold the laundry. I didn't interrupt. Men my age learn that interruption is a kind of defense. I let the words pile up until they made their own shape. She touched the box with the back of her fingers, a gesture that looked like apology and goodbye at once. And when the room asked me what I would do with this truth, I answered without a speech. "I believe you," I said. But apologies don't erase the one moment that mattered most. I told her that the silence at the table was louder than any confession. A man can survive almost anything, but not the feeling that he's standing alone in his own house. She nodded, tears catching at the corner of her mouth, and for a second I felt the old reflex to fix, to hand her a towel, to smooth the wrinkle in the world. I didn't. We were past towels. "That night was the truth," I said. You had a chance to say my name. You chose not to. It wasn't a knife. It was a plumb line. Straight, accurate, undeniable." She looked at her hands like they could sign a different ending, and when she lifted her eyes again, I saw acceptance take the seat where bargaining had been. She stood, then sat, then stood again. The choreography of endings. "I won't ask you to come back," she said, and the strength in her voice surprised me. "I'm sorry for all of it. Not just the messages, the way I made you small. There are lines a person says that finally match the size of what happened. This was one." I nodded. No victory lap, no lecture, no attempt to write a moral on the chalkboard. Some losses you fold neatly, put in a drawer, and never wear again. She placed the box on the nightstand like it belonged to the room now, not to either of us. At the door she touched the jamb with 2 fingers, a habit she's had since college, like knocking on wood. "Goodbye, Jack," she said, and for the first time in months, she chose the right word. I stood at the window and watched her cross the parking lot, that slow walk you do when you're not sure your legs work right. She didn't look back, and I respected that. Looking back breaks things a second time. A semi rolled by, and its wind pushed a napkin across the asphalt, a little white flag with no war left in it. I thought about all the times I'd chased, arguments, promotions, the perfect weekend. There's a good kind of chase and a foolish kind. This was neither. This was a man staying put in a choice he meant. She got into her car, started it, and pulled away clean. No horn, no music, just motion. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt correct, the way a level settles when a board finally sits right. Later, I carried a beer to the balcony and watched the orange peel off the day. Out past the highway, the town breathed, tiny porch lights winking on, sprinklers keeping their promises, the diner neon humming its tired song. I leaned on the rail and took inventory. Money I'd need to move, a lawyer to call Monday, the spare key to drop off with Mike. Practical peace, not fireworks, good plumbing. In the fading light, I could see my reflection in the glass door. Older than yesterday, somehow lighter. My dad used to say, "A man's got 2 jobs, tell the truth and carry what's his." Tonight, I had done both. The sky slid toward dark like a curtain you pull when the show is over. And for the first time in a long time, the quiet didn't feel like punishment. It felt like permission. I didn't toast to getting even. There was no list of paybacks, no speeches written in my head. Revenge breaks the same thing twice and calls it strength. Respect builds what's next. I respected the years that were real. I respected the lesson I'd ignored. I respected myself enough to leave the table when my name wasn't being said. Men my age know the difference between proving a point and living one. I slid the balcony door shut, set the empty bottle in the trash, and laid down on a bed that belonged to nobody. Tomorrow would be paperwork and boxes and 1,000 practical steps. Tonight was simpler. This story wasn't about winning her back. It was about getting myself back and walking forward with both hands free. I didn't win tonight. I chose. That's the difference I wish someone had told me years ago. You don't have to out-argue a lie or outwork a silence. You can set your ring on a table, set your shoulders, and set yourself free. Silence is also a choice. Respect yourself enough to walk away. I'm not angry anymore. I'm accurate. I carried what was mine. I put down what wasn't. If you've ever felt that late-night buzz cut through your house like a draft, if you've ever watched someone you love turn toward a glow that didn't have your name on it, you know this feeling in your bones. So here's the part where I hand it to you. If this story found you at the right time, drop 4 words so another man sees it when he needs it. I choose myself. And tell me your take. Stay, walk, make her choose. I read every comment. Subscribe if you want more truths told plain, because the next chapter starts with us.